Hello, so in this tutorial we're going to learn how to use the pin constraint. So our first step is we're going to add our axle. This is useful to add wheels and any moving parts that are rotating. So we're going to use this 3-inch axle for the purpose of this video. As you can see, now that we've opened it, it has appeared in our assembly window. So for the axle, since we want it to spin in this bearing, up here, we're going to set it, instead of user defined, we're going to set this over up here to the pin constraint. And with the pin constraint, Creo has specific things that it wants to know about the placement of the part. So we're going to go into the placement menu to see what it wants. So it wants one axis alignment constraint and a translation constraint. The axis alignment constraint, we're going to use this round bit of the pin of the axis and axle and this inside of the bearing, and that lines them up along the same axis. So the axle is now centered inside our bearing. And the second thing we want is the translation. So that is how far this axle is inside the hole. So we're going to put that there, and the default is coincident, but we're going to change that to distance because, as you can see right now, with it coincident, we can't actually put a wheel on that end. So we're going to change it to distance, and I'm going to put it, let's say, 1 inch. So now we have our axle in our part, and if we click the check button, we can now see how the axle will move. If we click the drag components button, the pin allows the part to move. So when we click on the axle and we rotate it, you can click on any point on the axle, you can watch it spin. It's much easier, it's even easier to see if you add a wheel to it. So I'm going to add one of our Mecanum wheels onto this axle so you can see the full wheel spinning. So when you connect something to a pin, you don't have to set it as a pin as well. You can just use the usual constraints on it, keep it user defined. So we're going to So now you can see our wheel is attached to the axle. Ignore the image, it was used for design on the wheel. It doesn't have any effect on the wheel. So now that we have our wheel on our axle, we can also, now to drag components, we can click on any point on the wheel or the axle. Anything connected to the axle, if you click on a point, you can use it to rotate the whole axle. So now you can see the wheel and the axle move together. So those are the basics of the pin constraint.